What kind of vibe did the bride and groom want? We're able to figure out some of the things that they're, absolutely do not want played. I think it was off-putting for some of the younger people. And so many people requesting for, top 40 recurrent. And I think when the room starts to turn and it gets younger, then the music should follow suit.
And we're getting into fall for Mole Music Thursday. Welcome to another great episode with another really talented DJ that I'm really excited to get into their insights and find out what it is that makes their mixing, their music selection, and their music the best when they're going out and performing for their audiences. This week, you already see him on the screen, so let me tell you a little bit about who he is. This fellow owns a rather large company, Pinnacle DJs in Sioux Falls, has expanded from a single operator over the past 12 years and has developed into a company with 13 employees, 15 subcontractors providing entertainment and production services and DJs in the wedding area, corporate, school, karaoke, nightclubs, a really multiple business lines that they support down in the Sioux Falls area as well as Des Moines, Iowa, and in and around that area there. So really making a big difference and really being an industry leader in that way. And you can't be an industry leader by playing bad music. That is for sure. So I'm really excited to be having Chris Hintz of Pinnacle DJs on the show this week. Chris, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be able to talk about music with us this week.
What better way to talk about what we do than the music that we get to play? So thank you for having me, Jason.
Exactly. My pleasure. So I'm going to begin with you like I begin with so many at the beginning of the show. And that is, I want to get an idea when we're going to talk about weddings. So when you go out to do a wedding and you're thinking about the music that you're going to be playing or kind of your game plan for the night. And we can use, I also can respect and understand that every wedding is going to be nuanced and different. So let's use one of your more recent weddings that informed the choices that you made. What was your game plan for one of your more recent weddings when you went in for the night or you were about to begin playing the music for the night? How do you kind of look at the landscape of your general plan that you're going to follow?
Well, thankfully, we have the planning tools and stuff ahead of time, so we're able to figure out some of the things that they're, absolutely do not want played. They must have played because they were their jams, whether they were Greek or whether they were at college, and these were the jams that them and their boys went to.
Sure.
So we kind of go around that a little bit, but I think like a beginning of a wedding celebration, I think what you're really trying to do is you're kind of trying to prime the pump and get music that maybe toe tappable, head bobbable, but not necessarily danceable in the very beginning of the night.
Okay, now tell me, when is the beginning of the night? Is that time like right after desserts, or is that during dinner music? When is that?
Well, I think that if you're going to program an event, I think that you start from the very beginning when people are walking through the door.
Okay.
What kind of vibe are they, what kind of vibe did the bride and groom want?
All right, so this is like, so are we following kind of a cocktail hour, dinner, dance general format? I mean, I'm sure there's activities in between, but music-wise, we have. Is there another category or transition period?
No, I think those are pretty common. I mean,
Okay.
I think you have the cocktail music when guests are arriving. You have the introductions. There's a little break there, obviously, for dinner. But you're still playing dinner music and such. And the wedding I just did this past weekend, they wanted a rustic theme, which seems to be very popular this year. But they also wanted to have classic hits from the Beatles, and they also wanted, like, Jim Croce and stuff like that was popular for Grandma and Grandpa.
Okay.
It's not going to dance to, but you know that it's got a vibe that's conducive to fun for those older people who may or may not participate in the actual dancing festivities. So
Sure. So like 70s players like you're describing kind of make up the rustic feel, yes, from the kind of the pop rock era.
I think for that group, yes. I would say that there's a million other things you could obviously play, but they also had other things in there like Mumford & Sons in that beginning part of the playlist too. Again, music that reflected the couple, but wasn't necessarily danceable. So
Sure, but yeah,
I
get that. And to what we're talking about the cocktail hour music, that sort of thing. So you're setting the vibe and you're setting the tone with this, and you're also working to match the theme. So I get curious about, and I know there's lots and lots of choices, but that's why we're zeroing in on like this one particular client, and that you're creating a playlist, or on the fly, however it works for you, that matches that rustic theme, which I heard heard sounds like more of your kind of singer-songwriter kind of thing, as well as Beatles and some of the classics and things like that, some classics pop. That's mixed in with what? How would you describe the current music that you mixed in that was their taste that still kind of matched the rustic theme?
They actually asked for Magic Rude. They wanted that played. And I actually played that during dinner music because I had like 3 little girls that were right up front that wanted to hear that song really, really bad. And
Okay.
it actually worked out well because they wanted that for dinner and cocktail, not necessarily for, the dance portion. And mainly because when she was a little girl, her dad would always say, anybody ever asks me, there's no way I'm going to let him, have your hand in
I'm
here.
not going to say yes because I don't want to lose my little girl.
Right, exactly. So that's it was a inside joke, but it also worked very well for the 3 little girls that happened to be up front. I didn't get to play Frozen for them. So.
Right. Oh, right. Of course. Right. Yeah. Like
exactly.
the most downloaded, undanceable, playable song. Right.
Yeah.
Can't always just go by whatever's on iTunes most downloaded as far as what's gonna work for you on the floor. Okay. So we make the transition into dinner music. Is it pretty much the same? Is it kind of the same feel and vibe all the way through that period up to the dancing?
I'd say it's very similar in flavor. So the stuff that we were playing in the beginning is a little bit more jazzed up, maybe a little higher tempo. This past weekend, we actually segged into more of like the Gatsby soundtrack from the most recent Leonardo DiCaprio version, where we played A Little Party Never Hurt Anybody, Fergie, as we're getting ready to prime up for the dance. After dinner is done, after speeches are done, that lull where you have to tear down a couple tables and strike those, that's when we started ramping up the energy a little bit. And their first dance was... Bang Bang by will.i.am, which is a really odd song to dance to, but that's what they wanted. And she had her dress was long, flowing, almost like Flapper-esque.
Uh-huh.
And his tux was very dapper from the 20s era as well. So it worked very well with what they wanted.
So is this rustic, but also with... so the theme was rustic, but yet they were kind of doing a 20, like a Gatsby theme in a way?
The music was more of the Gatsby-esque.
Oh, the music was more Gatsby-esque, but you're telling me like it sounds like their dress was kind of reminiscent of that era too.
Yeah, I would say their dress was of period. Burlap on the tables, mason jars, candles, that type of vibe, but
right, not the
upright.
Gatsby lavish gold and not the I am so rich 20s, but the oh my god the market crashed. Where are we going to eat 20s maybe?
Yeah, the early 30s.
Early 30s, right.
Yeah.
Early 30s. Yeah, that was after that. So thanks for the correction. Anyway, great. So you're starting to ramp up the energy, and you're going and you're looking to the Gatsby soundtrack. What are some other songs that are kind of ramping up the energy of the room as far as you're getting closer to the time when the dance is going to start?
We have a couple of redrums, and thank God for the redrums that have been issued in the last couple of years. It's allowed us to play older music with intros, outros, to be able to bring up the tempo a little as well. Normally, I typically would play something like the Rolling Stones, Start Me Up, with a redrum. Let's Get It Started, Black Eyed Peas, kind of not so subtly saying, hey, we're getting ready to party, So
sure.
For us, that's kind of what I do. But for this particular wedding, once we got the dance floor going, I mean, it was probably the best wedding dance I did this year. So.
Awesome. That's always terrific.
Oh,
so
great.
What is it? This is perfect that we're talking about this one then. Now, when you say redrum, what is it? What do you mean by? Is that like a remix?
No,
or is that one with a tail with a mixed beat put at the beginning and the end of it for mixing purposes?
Yeah, 8-measure intros, 16-measure intros and outros. Just allows you to take the BPMs and just extend the song, extend the track, extend the energy. Less transitions, no downtime, no cold outs. How a lot of songs are cold out where it just cuts and next song. I come from a radio background a little bit. I worked in Fargo for radio for a little while up there, and dead air was just well, if you've ever been in radio, dead air is like the
cardinal sin
possibly happens.
Right, it's like the worst possible thing. Dead air. Yeah, it's like the ship is going down. Ooh, yeah.
But there's been several services. Even Promo Only has some redrums of tracks that were done in the past. But there's several music subscription services that you can subscribe to get some of your older, I would say your like 70s, 80s, 90s, even some of the 60s actually. Like there's redrums for like Run Around Sue and
cool
drums for the Wanderer, so you can just extend those tracks in and out. And I think the attention span has gotten shorter too as we've gotten older, and especially with the younger kids. So now it seems like your chorus in, verse, chorus out, next track. So the ADD generation is kicking in on that side too. So
it's pretty much universal amongst everybody that I talk to on this show is that short attention span and the on demand, the sense of like, I want to hear what I want to hear when I want to hear it. A little less like, well, let's see what the DJ gives us. And we're like, excuse me, I have to go tell the DJ what to play.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother show that we could do on like, how do you manage? It's like they don't even really occur as requests anymore. It's like, here's my playlist. Could you tee this up? And then next, is that too soon? Why don't you just dump this song? This sort of mentality. So now we've gotten into, so we're starting they had their spotlight dances, yep. And now, right? And so now everybody dance is beginning. So what are you going to come out with for this audience, and why?
For this particular one, I was told or asked.
Oh, great!
With "We Are Family" because it was a very special song to the bride's family. So we played "We Are Family," and the dance floor was like packed right away. So out of that transition, you could easily go into "Celebration" or any of that '70s funk era where "You Sexy Thing," Hot Chocolate,
yeah.
"Sexual Healing," Marvin Gaye,
mm-hmm.
Jackson 5, "I Want You Back." There's a lot of things that you can do in that same kind of time frame that are very easy to stick with, and it's familiar to most people there. And I think the wedding programming, when you're programming the music for weddings, especially in the beginning, the familiarity has to be there whether you're 5 or 85. And then at least you have 100% of the audience that knows the song, so it might get them excited to dance early.
Mm-hmm.
And if they dance early, most of the time they'll stay dancing longer. And that's kind of what we want to do. But we also want to make sure that we give, the older relatives, the aunts, the uncles, parents, those guys something that is familiar to them that they will dance to, because we know at 10 o'clock, like clockwork, a lot of those people are going to leave because it's been a long day.
It's the pumpkin hour.
Yep, exactly.
If they don't get home, they'll turn into pumpkins.
Well, let's hope they don't do that. But they do go home, and then obviously the music segs into younger. And I think as the night goes on, I think you'll find most of the DJs are going to be playing towards that style. But
okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that you have a plan. So by 10 o'clock, do you make a judgment on shifting away from perhaps older tunes or recurrent tunes and going to more current? It doesn't have to necessarily be clubby because it depends on the audience. It could be more current country, it could be more current, but just more current music in the last couple of hours based on, well, it's after 10, everybody's heading out, now we're just going to shift to this? Or do you look at the room and see how much you've got of what in it?
I think you got to be aware of your demo in your room. You have to be aware that if the average age group is 30-35, the music is going to be different than if it's 50 or 55. And I think when the room starts to turn and it gets younger, then the music should follow suit. But I also know that most of the young people, especially the very young people, up until about 25, are very quick to make sure that they tell you what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. Whereas the older people expect you to, I don't want to say read minds, but they do expect you to play the certain music that they've always heard at weddings. And honestly, I think a lot of weddings become almost a mirror image of another. Not in my world, I don't believe, but I believe that most of the brides and grooms that we talk to in our consults, they'll say that this wedding was just like the last wedding it was 2 weeks ago or last year, and the music hasn't changed a lot. And and I do think that there are some powerful songs that you just can't get away from. Pour Some Sugar on Me, You Shook Me All Night Long. Those are still songs that are going to get a lot of people.
Why would you want to not play that?
Right, exactly. But that doesn't mean you have to stick to that. Mm-hmm. There's other songs that, haven't seen light of day in a very, very long time. And this last weekend at the wedding I did, we had a seg there where it started to die out a little bit. We had the energy up just a little bit too high for a little too long, but it was the bride saying this one, this one, this one, which is completely fine. That's why we're there.
Right. Yeah, it's her party.
Absolutely. But when we wanted to slow it down, the mother of the bride came up and says, "Hey, will you play Donna by Richie Valens?" Mm-hmm. I've never played that song at a wedding. In 14 years, I've never played that song.
Right.
As soon as I play that song, the dance floor went from 3 or 4 people to about 40 people.
Excellent.
And it happened to be that the aunt was Donna, and that's why everybody danced.
See, there was that inside track. It's something, it had meaning to that specific audience.
Absolutely. And those are things that I don't think you can, even if you ask, 70 questions before about the couple, about the family, some of those things just are never going to come up. So when you have an opportunity to take something, even though I was very hesitant to play it, I still played it. And it surprised me, more than any other song that I played the entire evening, the response to it. So we like to think we know everything, but we really don't know everything.
Right? That's very there's a wisdom right there. I love that right there. I'm gonna take that and play that back to myself every single day. So tell me a little bit about, because you said something really interesting. You were I totally, boy, I train wrecked my train of thought here. Donna. So you said you were hesitant to play Donna, but you did. So what was your hesitation? And then what had you say, okay, well, I'm going to put this on?
For me, I grew up and I watched La Bamba. And so as soon as I thought Donna, I thought of Richie Valens playing Crashing, and how morbid of a experience that was.
The saddest thing ever.
Well, yeah, and so, but if the bride's mom tells you she wants to play it for her sister named Donna, you're going to play it. But we've all had those requests where we're like, ugh, I'm not really sure we should play that.
Right.
And whether or not it was Donna or, more common stuff like when Carrie Underwood's Before He Cheats came out,
right,
people can understand why we wouldn't want to play that at a wedding.
Yeah, it's not really a celebration song.
No.
Like I remember way back when Ace of Base was really popular, and I had clients that said, we want that to be our first dance song, The Sign.
Yeah.
And I would say to them, you know what they're singing about, right? They're singing about breaking up. Like, yeah, we don't care. Okay. Yeah, really weird. And that's where you're like, that's what you want? That's what I'll give you. As long as you know what you're getting. Not like, I didn't think it was going to be like this.
Well, client satisfaction is our number one goal, obviously, but
yeah, exactly.
I just think some people are going to look back at some of these choices in 40 years, 20 years, and be like, why did we play that song?
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, when you experience a wedding is a kind of a whole experience, like one thing leading to the next, Right. I don't know if folks actually think about the music quite as much as we do, but that's our job. I mean, that's what we're there really to do and be thoughtful about, and also creating something unique just for them that speaks to them. All right, so you're getting into the later part of the night, and now let's say it's around that 10 o'clock pumpkin hour. What this last wedding that you're doing? How are you assessing like who's there, who's staying, who you're entertaining, who you're going to be working with, and where you're going to go with the music? What's the assessment of the room, and then what do you decide to do?
Well, this past weekend, the lighting was all the way up, which that never seems to happen at most of our receptions. Usually they dim the lights. So
sure.
That was kind of I think it was a little off-putting for some of the younger people that are used to being darker in the clubs when they actually start to dance and such.
Sure.
But at about 10 o'clock, 10:15, Grandma and Grandpa left, and they had, the bride and groom had said goodbye to them. And 3 or 4 of the people that had been requesting and dancing to the request most of the night were leaving as well. And at that point, we'd already had so many people requesting for, top 40 recurrent that we were going to make that switch as soon as we got done with our bouquet toss and stuff anyway. But we want that switch to be subtle. So playing stuff that is still going to be, I say like, I Got a Feeling, what I would say is a strong recurrent. That's not something that any older person is going to be upset if we play.
Right.
Pharrell's Happy. That's not a song anybody's going to be upset if we play. Blurred Lines. That's not a song anybody's going to be upset that we play. So that's when we seg from, the older Donna, and then we played, I believe we played Eric Clapton's Wonderful Tonight after that, so the 2 slow songs, and then we played Happy by Pharrell, and that dance floor was packed, and from that point on, it was mainly younger people all night long, until, I would say, 40 minutes after we started that set, slowed it down one more time, and then we did like the 80s power set from 10:45 till about 11-ish, and that's where, you play. Like I have a redrum for Don't Stop Believin', then goes into Living on a Prayer. Basically, again, chorus, chorus, verse, chorus, out.
Sure.
So
do you break from the top 40 emphasis later in the night for anyone that's maybe of older generations that are still there that maybe isn't really grooving, or are you really focused on your kind of your core group the largest numbers of your core group for your dance floor. How do you reconcile that when you think about that as far as trying to play the audience in the room?
If the energy has been peaked for a while, like you're at 128 with Timber and you're a Gangnam Style and Party Rock Anthem or that kind of stuff, you're not going to be able to go more than 5 or 6 songs before you burn people out. They're just going to be tired. They're going to need a drink. They're going to need to sit for a couple moments or slow dance. So that's when you would seg into something else. And if there's somebody else that's still there, like 11 o'clock, let's say, that had requested a song prior to us going into the more top 40, then we'll probably play it then. That's when we would play something like, Fishing in the Dark or Sweet Home Alabama or something along those lines if we haven't yet played them. So that would pull those people back to the dance floor. So at least we made an attempt to appease that demographic as well, the 45 to 65 demo.
Right, yeah. Instead of kind of the like, well, so long, you all can go home now because we're playing, we're focusing on this sort of thing to come back, still give them opportunities to go, hey, you still notice that I'm here.
Yep. Well, and there's a lot of songs too. Like for me growing up, my dad had a Gran Torino, and I remember very vividly listening to 8 tracks of Wichita Lineman and Islands in the Stream and that kind of stuff. So for me, those bring back memories. I don't necessarily want that song, but for my mom and dad, I would want them to have that because that was a big part of our, upbringing. So I think there are certain songs that are of that demo that are going to trigger positive memories for younger people as well. It's not just for the parents or grandparents. Sometimes it's like, oh, I remember when, we're driving down the road to Webster to see my aunt and uncle, and we're listening to Rhinestone Cowboy at the top of our lungs.
Right.
So those are things I think can pull back memories. And our job ultimately, I think, is to create memories for our clients. And if you can trigger in on one of those things that you may not have thought about prior to, they're going to talk about it for days afterwards. And I want their friends and family to talk about their wedding 6 months, a year from now, saying that was the best wedding ever. We didn't want to leave. And those are the things little things like that, I think you can trigger and key into, not just the energy in the room of the people dancing right now, but the people that are craving that attention to dance and participate. So they're not staying after 11 o'clock because they want cake. They're staying because they want to have fun. So.
Right. And I'm sure that point of view and focus has been one of the key ingredients to the success of Pinnacle. I tell you, I can't believe how fast time flies when we do these shows. Chris, thanks so much for being a guest on this week's Mobile Music Thursday. Your insight was really, really interesting. And I think I learned just some new ideas and some new ways to really kind of approach programming the whole dance floor and the whole night. Thanks so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jason.
Awesome. And I want to remind everybody who's viewing also, be sure to check out Wednesday Night Lighting Chat. You can always find out the latest in technology and trends in dance floor lighting, up lighting, ambient lighting. They talk about everything on the Wednesday Night Lighting Chat, right? And it's right here on DJNTV. Until next week, when we talk to another top DJ about how they program music, this is Jason Jones saying so long.